There you guys. I look forward to this year all week. Such an honor to learn with you guys. Orot HaTeshuva. It says that Sari Menu says when she says that Ishmael is not going to inherit the legacy of Avram, she says not with Yitzchak Beni, with my son Yitzchak. And Rashi points out that everybody knows that Yitzchak is her son. Why do you have to say my son Yitzchak? She said the kavanah is that because he's my son, even if he wouldn't be Yitzchak. And if it'd be Yitzchak, even if he wouldn't be my son, meaning each one in itself is its own milah. So learning Orot HaTeshuva, and especially with you guys, each one is such a. Okay, gentlemen, beautiful pieces. Beautiful pieces. Chapter 8, Piska Vav. The Rav Kook starts up like if you guys remember, we had a 2-week hiatus now, but last time we were speaking about. The last two, we were talking about Rishaim, and the concept of Rishaim is someone who's really disaligned, and the disalignment that he has, that their misalignment that he has with himself, and with the creation, with the Kadosh Baruch Hu, with mankind, causes all kinds of unpleasant psycho-emotional experiences, right? Rage, anger, resentment, all those different things we were talking about. So now we're going to talk about the other side of the coin. Says Rav Kook. And by the way, is that clock? That clock is not.
No. Oh no, it's not 7 a.m. anymore.
It's. I don't have a.
11:25.
Oh, my watch. Okay. Just I don't want to make sure I don't go over. Okay. Kacha. Tzadikim osim tshuva. When tzadikim are doing tshuva, when are tzadikim doing tshuva? Always, right? What are we doing right now?
Tshuva.
This is tshuva. This is called tshuva. Tshuva is not just this, I'm bad, I did something wrong thing, right? Tshuva is any movement that a person makes towards a Kadosh Baruch Hu in a conscious way, right? I'm consciously trying to bring myself towards a Kadosh Baruch Hu. That's called tshuva. Teshuv, to return to God. So, but specifically in general. I mean, not that was a contradiction. If it is specific, the general term of doing tshuva, it means really when a person is returning from something that he's done wrong, he's fixing something, right?
Does tshuva have to be intentional, or is there such a thing as unintentional tshuva?
Good question. It's only intentional, really, right? It's a mitzvah, just like all mitzvahs have to be intentional, right? And it's a surgery, right? It's fixing something that was inappropriate or was shooting in the wrong direction. So now I have to guide it in the right direction, right? It's like machining it. It's mechanical, right? So he says when they're doing tshuva, meirim hem or hakdusha b'chol darkei arpelim v'apgamim shehem motziim b'nafsham. They shine, they illuminate light of holiness in all the dark alleyways and places and blemishes that they find in themselves, in their soul, right? V'aitzot, meaning they don't just they're not just trying to be what we call in Yiddish yotzezayin. You know what it means, yotzezayin? Mm-hmm. To be yotzei yedei chova, to fulfill my basic obligation, right? Right? When your wife says, I don't feel like you love me enough. So okay, what will make you feel like I love you, right? If you do the dishes, okay, do the dishes. Good enough? Yeah. Right? That's not gonna make her feel loved, right? Not enough. I mean a little bit, right? So that's called being yotzei. Yotzei is like to fulfill my obligation, v'tulo, and nothing more, right? The tzaddik, don't you say, okay, what did somebody else point out that I could fix, that I could be better about? I'll do that, and then I'm gonna go on with my life. No, any place that might have a little bit of darkness in my life, I want to fix it. They shine the light in those places, every single place, right? What do we say for those that say the tefillot after Sfirat Omer? We said that Hashem, that we should fix, that should be purified and sanctified from kol sig ufgam, every single type of blemish that there could possibly be, every single type of how do you say a sig? When you have if you have metal and you're purifying the metal. the part that
Impurity.
the impure parts of the right you're refining gold or something. The parts that sigim are the part that fall out. That's the part that you don't want, right? So we're saying, I don't just want to be good enough. Every part of my life I want to be filled with light. And therefore they have to come up with all different kinds of creative ideas and pieces of advice for themselves. How can I fix this thing? This is the way that I know how to speak to a parent, because this is how I saw my parents speak to their parents, or this is what I saw on TV. I don't know any different way how to speak to a parent, right? Let's say if a person's trying to refine their relationship with their parents. So how do I do it? I have to come up with some type of advice for myself. How to do this? I have to get creative, right? How to find a way to do it? To find other people, to make it mine, to make it. And one of the great ways of refining ourselves is connect yourself with people who are refined people, and watch them. Watch how they do it. Everybody has a model that they that they use. I remember Rav Shmuel Eliyahu once said that his model is Rabbi Gun. It's interesting when it comes to interpersonal relationships. He's the son of Rav Mordechai Eliyahu. And he said when it came to personal relationships, he said once that Rabbi Gun is my model.
Wow.
Right. So I know a Yid Talmid Chacham Muflag, Rabbi Yechiel Mechel Vayner Shlita. He's a Biala Chassid in Beit Shemesh. He's my model. How he walks into shul, he goes around to every single person, shakes the hand, gives them a warm Shalom Aleichem Boker Tov every single day, every single person, any person that's new. He doesn't wait for somebody. Sometimes you have those people that you never say Shalom to, and like each one is waiting for the other one. Well, he should say Shalom. He was here first, or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So he's not making cheshbonis. I want to go. It says in the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan, never did a person beat him to say Shalom first. This is not even the non-Jews in the shuk. He would go. Imagine Rabbi Yochanan was walking around the shuk to every non-Jew, every Jew. He would go around. He's saying, "Say Shalom Aleichem." Nobody could beat him. Nobody could catch him. Right? So you attach yourself to people who achieve greatness in refining themselves, and you learn all different kinds of ways. But it's not enough, because each person is their own specific world, with their own challenges and with their own relationships and with their own pekalach, and we have to find the eitzes. We have to find Rabbi Nachman. This is a term that Rabbi Nachman uses a lot. Is finding the eitzes, the advice, right? The advice of how to do. So the advice that they create for themselves, la'alot mitoch nefila, to elevate them, to pick themselves up out of whatever fallen place they've fallen into, ve'yeush shebil levavam, and despair in their hearts, into the light of clarity, of holiness, and the exalted uprightness of Hashem. Meaning, how am I going to pick myself up? Any piece of advice that you give yourself, the foundation of advice is hope. Right? We don't think about that, but that's really the foundation of advice. Is there's a way to change. There's a way to do this differently. There's a way to make it better. Right? So each time that they are thinking and they're churning, how can I be better? How can I do it? How can I heal? How can I heal others? How can I bring goodness to the world, etc., etc.? All the different ways that they're churning. Each one of those is aligning themselves and peeling themselves and essentially the entire world out of despair, out of the darkness, and into the light of holiness, and into realignment with Hashem.
This makes a lot of sense. This, I would say I would credit this to how I am today, because growing up, like my community, didn't have very, very many Jews. I had very few Jews, and I had one dying synagogue, and the one synagogue in that was like a town over. It was all like it would barely make a minyan, but it was like all older people, and I was like always the youngest person there, and I always learned from the people there. They were like the wisest people I've ever met ever, because like in my town there wasn't a lot of very, very good people. Hannah, we were in the same community. We went to the same community. We had like Shuli and Lisa, remember? So
the elders.
Yeah. So
wow. So there you go, a living dogma. How to do it. When you find someone with a white beard, go stick to them. Okay. It's a Purim costume. Right. Each one of those white hairs is hard earned. Okay. Not to pick on anybody here. That advice, those pieces of advice that they give to themselves, and now this is going to connect it with what we said. They themselves, those pieces of advice, become shining lights to illuminate the entire world. How? So even if I'm on a desert island, I have a Rav that once said this is a beautiful thought. He said, if you want a thought that this thought is like a mikveh, if you want a thought that can purify you like a mikveh, he said, imagine that you're on a desert island. You have everything you need for Yiddishkeit. You have a shofar. You've got trees that are growing all the 4 minim for Sukkot. You got wheat. If you can make matzahs, and you got a beit midrash, beautiful there with all the svarim that you need. You have tefillin, but there's nobody there. They're just you. So what are you missing? Huh? You cannot. But you're also Rahman honest Rahman Pater. That if you're stuck there, you're stuck there. Meaning the idea is not to really think about what's missing. The idea is really to think that right, and how much right. But so even if I'm on a desert island and nobody can learn from my midot, and I can't learn from anybody else's midot, but what I do affects the world spiritually. It says in Masechet Yuma. It says that Yochid Shishav Mochalim Lo V'Kol Olam Kulo. One person that does tshuva, he's atoned for, he's forgiven, and the entire world is forgiven, right? And it says Gadol Tshuva Shemivia Refuah Leolam. Great, how great is tshuva that it brings healing to the world, not just for this person. There's something universal that happens. You guys know the butterfly effect. So it's also It's also spiritual. Whatever I do, even if nobody sees what I do. And sometimes those things are even the most effective things, right? You guys know Rav Kook actually has a piece about this, the Lag BaOmer. You guys know that we sing on Lag BaOmer that Rabbi Shimon saved the entire world. How did he save the world? Does anybody know?
Teshuva?
He went into a cave with a couple of chevra, and they made Not that time. There was 3 times he went into a cave. But not because he had to. One time was because he had to. He was running away. He's hiding. But he went into a cave with the chevra. It's called the Idra. The Idra Rabbi. And he went in there and they made tikkunim. They were learning Torah and they were making tikkunim. They were doing all types of rectifications. They literally saved the world on a spiritual level. We can't understand what that means. But that's our Masorah. Right? So Rav Kook says sometimes, he says, you see this also with Noach. Right? Noach wasn't out in the world, with a stand putting tefillin on people. Noach was in a little boat, floating in a world filled with water. If they wouldn't write, if it wouldn't be written about in the Torah Kedosha, what Noach did, we wouldn't know what he's doing. What was he doing there for the whole year? The Midrash says he was feeding animals. All day and all night, he was busy with feeding animals, right? And he was making a tikkun for the improper chesed that was going on in the world before, where man was communing with animal and all different kinds of relationships that weren't appropriate, and there was no boundaries, and there was stealing, and there was right. And he was bringing all the chesed back into alignment with how it's supposed to be, just all the time, just giving and giving and giving and giving, for a year, right? And he fixed the world, right? He atoned for the world in that. So he says, so Rav Kook says there's such a time, there's different times in history where outside, to try to fix things on an outside level, to go hold up your sign in front of the Knesset, it's not going to work. I'm not telling that what to do or not to do, right? Everybody can make their own decision on that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, right? But there is such a thing that it doesn't work, and the place to make the tikkun is dafka only inside. And only when you go inside and you make the tikkun, so then everything on the outside also becomes fixed, right? So there's this place where also it becomes. So what if I'm a tzaddik and I'm doing tshuva and I'm coming up with eitzot for myself and nobody else knows about them, but it affects the world. That's one level, and then there's the other level which we're talking about. If I could figure out how to be a person who really loves people, who's truly kind to people, who's caring about people. And then all these other people around me are going to see me doing that. That's a bastion of light for them. I'm teaching them how to do it just by being an example, right? This is how you educate your children more than As much as, and I'm a hypocrite about this, but, as much as we think that our lectures and our words that we teach our children, the guidance that we're trying to give them on a silver platter, that's really affecting them, but it's more what they actually see in what we do, right? They see the example. So that's how it works with tzaddikim. Now listen to what Rav Kook says. You guys were thinking this whole time, I wonder who these big tzaddikim are that Rav Kook is talking about, right? Now listen to what Rav Kook says. V'chol hamagish ba'atzmo omek nocham HaTeshuva v'hitmarmerut hamachshava letikun pigamav. Anybody that feels within themselves a deep comfort in tshuva, meaning in the notion of tshuva, he yearns for tshuva. He feels like, he says, tshuva's going to be my ticket. Tshuva's going to be my derech. Maybe I'm not there right now. Maybe it's a little bit heavy for me right now, but that's really what I'm seeking, right? Wow, why? הלוואי שאני יכול לשים את הרע בתוך הכוס, גם. You guys understand what I said?
Yeah.
If we could make some type of like Rav Listman pill, everybody could take a dose of Rav Listman in the world. We have Amish, that's it. We would tilt the scales, right? Don't tell him to tell you that. Okay. Oh, wait a minute, we're on. He won't watch this. Okay. So anybody that's tshuva says tshuva is my ticket, tshuva is my derech, right? That it comforts in the thought of it. And there's a stirring in his thoughts to fix himself. Meaning, this might be hard for you guys to understand or to relate to, but there's some people in the world that are kind of like living in a rotten way, and it doesn't bother them even one iota. Can you imagine such a thing? I don't know. You guys ever met anybody like that? I don't know. It's hard to imagine, but there probably is in the world. I don't know. It says that Rishaim meleim charatot. The Gemara says that Rishaim are filled with regret. They don't ever do anything with their regret, necessarily. They're not, right? It doesn't push them to fix themselves, right? But it's like, people who are abusing people in the world. Most abusers were abused. Almost all abusers were abused. It's very rare to find an abuser that wasn't abused. They're passing on something that they received, right? They feel bad about it, but they don't stop it. There's a whole world of that, But if anybody is in the category where they think they have stirring in their thoughts, I'd like to fix myself. I'm not happy with these things that are not straight inside of me, right? It bothers him, right? Some people call it a guilty conscience, or some people call it a conscience, or whatever you would call it, right? If that's going on inside of you, whether it's things inside of yourself that you've already successfully been able to fix, or you feel like at least you have a map forward how you can do it. Whether it's things that he has no idea how he's ever going to fix that. There's no way I'm ever going to fix that, right? L'dugma, I hate this person, and I can't ever imagine not hating them, or I can't even imagine wanting to not hate them, right? But I know that I'm not allowed to hate another Jew, right? So I have no idea how I'm ever going to get over this. I have no idea, and I can't, or I'm addicted to this, and I can't possibly imagine myself coming out of it, right? Or whatever it is. There's things in our life where we feel, okay, this, I'm already working on this I got this one, and there's other things like there's no way. Usually what we do is we don't look at those things that we feel like we have no idea how to do them because it's overwhelming for us, We used the word addiction just a minute ago. Addictions are for the most part based on trauma, right? And the concept of addiction is running away from a certain kind of inner pain that I'm experiencing because it feels very, very scary.
Yeah, seeking comfort and soothing.
Right, and mostly just like running and not turning back, because if I turn back and I look at it, so then I feel like I won't be able to handle it, right? So the beginning of healing and addiction, I don't know the beginning, but the thrust of the healing and addiction is really to like actually turn around and let yourself see what's actually what you've been running from, right? What's actually there? What's the pain, right? So most people feel like if I do that, I'm going to die, right? So I got to keep on running, right? But once you do, so it's not it's you can handle it. Baruch Hashem. there's ways to get over it. There's ways to heal from it, right? But the pain of the addiction is, besides whatever things are happening in their life and other kinds of repercussions from their actions, but the pain of just that concept of being addicted is that I know that I'm running, and I always feel like I'm on borrowed time, right? So here, it's the same thing at a different level. A person might not be addicted, but a person might say that there's places in my life that I just feel like it's just too big for me to fix, so I'm not even going to look at them. But here, Rav Kook is saying that if you're a person who's thinking, who's churning, who's wanting to be better, who's thinking about tshuva, whether it's the places that you already feel like you've got a handle, and your hand is on your hand is on the door, or the other places that not, but you're at least aware of them and you would like to fix them. And you don't know what to do about them, but you're hoping for Hashem's compassion, and Hashem's going to just heal you from it and fix it for you. All right? So if you're in that category, so then you are in this category of what we're calling tzaddikim. That's what Rav Kook says. So there you go, gentlemen. There's no outs anymore. You're all in. Right? We think of tzaddikim as like, Rabbi Nachman, Rabbi Shimon, right? Rav Kook thinks of tzaddikim besides Rabbi Nachman and Rabbi Shimon, and he looks at all of you. Right? That's called a tzaddik. Someone that's on the path.
We're still in Vav?
Yeah, last sentence here.
Okay.
שממחשבות התשובה שלהם עולם כולו מתחדש באור חדש. That in your thoughts of tshuva, and in their thoughts of tshuva, ha'olam kula, the entire world becomes renewed with a new light. And you think to yourself, I'm just a little, a little yidel over here in Machomir in the corner. Nobody notices. What am I doing? And the whole world is becoming renewed with your light, gentlemen. You can blame Rav Kook. It's not me. That's just the way it goes. Okay, any questions or comments before we go on? Okay, Zayin. This is a Givaldic piece. And this is really what we've been talking about. You guys know that Rav Kook's philosophy is tshuva is essentially alignment with Hashem, and anything that's disaligned with Hashem is called chet, and has all kinds of repercussions that we experience in many different ways. What Rav Kook is describing. So now Rav Kook is really just going to speak it out. Haolam kulam alehu harmonia. The world is filled with harmony. The entire world is one harmonious thing, item. B'hatama ameachedet, the unifying. How do you say hatama?
I got you.
We're going to do a Google Translate. This is a hard one. Hatama is how each thing fits. Like when you have two puzzle pieces that fit perfectly, yeah. they're matim aligned. Unifying counterparts, right? So the hatama me'achedet match.
Adjustment, suitability, accommodation, fit, adaptation, fitness.
There we go. However you like, gentlemen. Basically, whatever you want to call it is the bottom line.
Oh yeah, like my team.
So the fact that everything is aligned and appropriate and customized for each compatible for each other, right? But intentionally compatible, right? For each other, that unifies everything, and that unifying compatibility mefaleshet b'chol chadrei metziut v'chagvea. It penetrates every single room of creation and in all the cracks. Meaning, there's no part of creation that's not designed for that unity, that's not compatible. And here you have something really, really deep that if the Piasetzin and Rabbi says, I might have said this before. This is like the shorish of the hippie movement. What do they call the hippies? Tree huggers, right?
Yeah.
So the Piasetzer wrote, decades before the hippie movement, was he said that a person should go out into the forest, and also Rabbi Nachman said a person should go out into nature. Nature is a major thing. Not just Rabbi Nachman. In the time of the Zohar Kodesh and the Rabbeinu Avram ben Rambam, the son of the Rambam, he writes how important it is to go out of the city, right, to have moments of unification with God and nature. So, but the Pesach says, go out into nature and look how everything is all in harmony. Look how everything works in harmony. Everything is working, and you should say to Hashem, why should I be the only one that's outside of this harmony? I also want to be part of this, right? She didn't say actually to hug the tree, but pretty close. Right?
Harmonize with nature, man.
That's right. That's what it is. And every single thing in nature, not just in nature. Everything is in nature. Every single thing in creation is just reverberating with this harmony. It's wanting to be harmonized with everything, right? And it's ready to be harmonized. It's ready to be living harmoniously. המוסר הפנימי והטבעותיה החזקות הינם נמשכים ובאים מהם מהד קולם המאוחד של כל חלקי ההוויה. So you'd say maybe that's on a physical level. But what about on a spiritual level? Is on a spiritual level, it's all one. Everything, all the different layers are all one. He says that the inner morality and its requirements and its strong requirements of us, meaning the conscience that pushes us to be right, like the pasuk says, that Hashem made man upright. Our nature is upright, right? To not be a good person, a person has to go against their nature, right? So that inner drive for morality, that itself comes from, it's like how do you say, an echo, like a reflection from that unified voice of all the different parts of creation. Meaning, your neshama is feeling the calling from all of creation to be living harmoniously with it, right? That's why I think that Rav Kook also talks about it, and we spoke about it, I think, a few months back, that if a person doesn't have any concept of Torah or God or anything like that, but they're connecting themselves with nature, eventually they're going to come to God. If they're really connecting with nature, because the voice of God is reverberating through nature, right? And so it's just the only way we can get out of it is by like cutting off our brains, so to speak, from anything natural in this world, which is kind of like what modern life is trying to do,
That's what happened.
Distract yourself ad infinitum.
That's what happened to me. I went to live by a creek, lived in the woods basically, and eventually brought me to God.
Right. And Baruch Hashem, you're not the first and you're not the last, and that's exactly what should happen to a person that live by the creek, right? We all need a little bit of time to at the creek in nature, especially people who are living in the cities and living, in man-made spaces all the time, and and never really getting out of that. Right? It takes a much greater effort to feel that. To feel that voice of harmony in the world, right?
Yeah, that's totally me. I'm a real city guy. Like growing up, I saw an ant like 3 times in my life until I was 20. Yeah, I'm a much city guy. I got scared if I saw an ant. But I don't know. If I go to nature, I'll go glamping.
That's fine. You don't have to. You have to lay down on the rocks. You just have to look at them and listen to them.
Not by me.
Right.
In New York, you got big old rats.
But Rav Kook said now, it's not just in nature, it's also inside of you. Your neshama's drive for goodness and for morality is also one of those voices, right? We think that one doesn't have to do with the other, right? But it's not there. Everything is all unified in that harmony. So he says, "Shekulam chodrim zeh bazeh והנפש כולה היא מלאה בכולם ומאוחדת בכולם. Because all the different elements of creation are all penetrating each other. They're all connected to each other. They're all calling out to each other for this ultimate harmony. Right? והנפש כולה, and our souls are entirely filled with them, and בכולם ומאוחדת בכולם, and unified with all of it. Right? When you go out to nature and you feel something stirs inside of you, it's because it's your soul. Your soul is stirring, not just because it's so beautiful, right? I mean, it is so beautiful, but how do you know it's so beautiful? Who says that it's beautiful? Who says that it's beautiful? Maybe it's not beautiful. The neshama says, "There's something here for me. There's something in me in this." Right? When you look in the eyes of another human being, something happens to you. Something happens when you look in the eyes into another human being. You feel there's a certain unity, there's a depth. We're so used to, you go to the office and you're just paying your thing, and you go, go to the store. So we try not to make a big deal out of it, and we're not really sensitive to the things that we feel, but we're feeling a deep connection all the time with all these different things around us. Some, eyes. If you look at a person's cheek, you're not connected. No, it's just the eyes are a little bit deeper. When you go out into nature, where it's a little bit unrestrained, so it's a little bit deeper. It's less filtered, so you can feel it more. Right, but essentially all of creation is like crying out for this unity and has that unity. And now Rav Kook said, now what does this have to do with tshuva? Kol ktzitza musarit berayon uv'maaseh betchuna v'mezeg goremet chatichot rabot shemeviyot yisurim rabim pnimim l'chol ma'archei haneshama. Any cutting off, any moral or ethical, spiritual cutting off from from meaning when we do something not ethical or immoral or right or unspiritual, right? Any one of those cutoffs, those little moments of like a ketzer, what do you call it? A short, right? Or an empty space whether it's just in ideas or whether it's in action, whether it's in our behavior or in our I don't know how you translate that. Mezeg in our, I don't know exactly what Rav means by the difference between those, but on any level, it causes a choppiness, like it breaks up the harmony, and this brings with it. This causes suffering, abundant inner suffering, to all the different systems of the soul. Right, just like your body as a single organism, if you stop breathing for 5 minutes, right? So the whole system is severely affected by that. If a person has some type of toxin in their body, right? If they ingest some type of toxin, same thing. If they don't drink, if they're all the systems become affected by it. So spiritually, your soul becomes affected by it, all the systems of the structure of your soul becomes affected by it. Meaning, if you tell a little white lie, right? You guys know that there's one thing that it says in the Torah to distance yourself from, and that's sheker, lying, falseness. Midvar sheker tiachak, it says, right? And there was tzaddikim that were like, to the nth degree, like, there's no human beings that do that. Everybody lies sometimes. Everybody says some things that stretches the truth or white lies, right? Mm-hmm. We don't feel that it affects us. Or let's say Lashon Hara. Right? Speak abyssal Lashon Hara. Abyssal. Just between you and one of your chaver.
I've met people who would use like omission as an excuse to lie. Like, oh, I didn't tell them that I was betraying them. So like, so it's not really me betraying them. So a betrayal is not really a lie. But like, you're not really telling them. Wouldn't that be a lie?
It could. It'd be very hard to write a book about the law book of lies because it's so there's so much subtlety there. But
lying through omission is definitely a thing.
Yeah, for sure, absolutely.
Lie.
No, sla.
But the point is that you think that as long as I don't get caught, right? Even Lashon Hara, it's the biggest chiddush in the world to say that when a person speaks Lashon Hara about someone, that 3 people are killed at that moment. There's a spiritual aspect of spiritual death, as the Gemara says. The person who speaks, the person who listens, and the person who is spoken about. What if it never gets out? What if it, I swear you to secrecy, and we never talk, and it never gets out, and he never hears about it. How can you say that it affects him? He wasn't part of it. Or how can you say that spiritually die? What are you talking about? Did you ever see anybody die when they spoke Lashon Hara? Doesn't happen, right? We don't feel what happens to us. We're not sensitive enough to feel what happens to us. Some people really are. There's the brother of the Baba Sali. I think it's the brother of the Baba Sali. Yeah, Rabbeinu David. David Abu Chatzer, Ater Toshenu, they call him, the crown of our head. He was the older brother of Baba Sali. He was like, stories, all the Abu Chatzer stories are just out of this world, and his are like, out of this world. And but there was one time where he was talking with his father, Rabbeinu Masud, in Halacha, and he disagreed with his father, and they were going back and forth, and he said, "Zelo nochon, Abba." He said, "It's not true, Abba. This is what it says there." And all of a sudden, he heard those words come out of his mouth, and he collapsed on the floor, because it says in the Shulchan Aruch that one of the ways of honoring your parent is that you're never allowed to disagree with them. What does it mean to disagree? You can have different opinion with your father, but you're never allowed to deny their words and say it's not true, right? And to argue in that type of way. So for him, it was in the most respectful way, and it was in halacha, and it was a slip. He collapsed on the floor, and he said, to atone for this, I'm putting myself in exile. And he went for a year. He left for a year. He didn't sleep in the same place for 2 nights for a year.
Where'd he go?
Now, who knows? He was fasting, and the Abu Chatzers did a lot of fast. And then when he came back a year later on the day, when he got into the Tchum Shabbat, meaning 2,000 amot from the city of wherever they were, I forget what city they were living in that time, he crawled on his hands and knees, weeping, back into his father's house, begging for forgiveness. And of course, his father forgave him already the minute that that the slip came out of his mouth. Okay, big deal. He slipped up a little bit, right? A tzaddik that's so super sensitive on a spiritual level, like Rabbeinu David, Ater Toshenu. So he felt the ramifications of what just happened, right? So we don't really feel it, but what happens is that it shocks the system in a negative way. It's toxic for the entire system of our soul. In the foundation of this spiritual suffering, הוא כוח המרעיד של סילוק אור החיים של הסידור הכללי של ההוויה כולה מצינורי החיים של הנשמה החוטאת. Okay. That's a difficult sentence. This is what it means. That the source of this suffering is the break between, let me say, I'll say it in a different direction. There's something called Tzorot shel Shefa, pipelines of abundance. Spiritual, the way that Hashem brings goodness and blessing and everything into this world is through these spiritual pipelines. That's what the deepest Sfarim call them. And as long as we're not doing anything to stop it, the abundance flows, the blessing flows, right? It's like your arteries, right? As long as there's nothing building up in there, so the blood just flows. You don't have to do anything, right? Hashem made the system of the world that He wants to give us blessing, and everything flows. And the more that the world is all aligned with total harmony, the more it flows, right? It just goes. So, but each person has their own pipeline as well, and their own connectivity towards the entirety of creation. So the suffering that the person endures, the spiritual suffering that we're talking about right now, Rav Kook says, comes from the pain of the light of this life of this shefa that should be coming to him, and now he's disconnected from it. He's not receiving it, right? He's not getting the shefa of that harmony that he's supposed to be getting. He's feeling himself disconnected. He doesn't realize it, right? I don't know about you guys, but in my life, I've got all kinds of inner pain and different kinds of, struggles with my own inner states and stuff. And a lot of times I try to think, well, what's going on? Maybe it's because of this, maybe it's because of this, maybe because of this. And the bottom line is that it's really because of this disharmony, right? Exactly where I became misaligned, exactly from when it is, and how I can fix it. So that takes tremendous chokhmah and tremendous tshuva. We have to hope that Hashem will open our eyes, and we have to do as much as we can. Then Hashem will finish the rest, right? But it's not coming because of something else. That's I'm worried about Biden's not giving enough support to Israel. Like if I'm worried because Biden's not giving enough support to Israel, it's because of something else. There's something. It's much deeper, right? Biden's a puppet.
Why are we reliant on U.S. support in the first place?
Right. If I'm in pain about that, and then it causes me anxiety, and then it causes me to be upset, and then it causes me sadness, and it causes me despair. How are we ever going to get out of this mess? You have to be a warrior in Israel, to remain optimistic. After all these years, so much of the same stuff just over and over and over and over. Every mamish, doesn't matter who the president is, doesn't matter who's in the UN, doesn't matter who's the Rosh Mimshallah, mamish makes no difference. It's the same thing over and over. So to be optimistic and to believe that we're able to get out of this, you have to be a warrior, right? So, but if I'm feeling weakness about that, if I'm feeling despair about that, and that's causing me to not have, a million side effects of that despair, right? I'm misaligned right now. I'm misaligned. Those are just the symptoms, right? If a person has a rash, breaks out on his skin, and he's just treating his skin, so that's like how Western medicine really is mainly focused. Like their specialty is, this is a doctor of this organ, right? But in more holistic systems of healing, the whole body is a single unit, right? And if there's something happening on your skin, it might not be because something's actually happening in your skin. That's just where it's showing up right now. I'm using skin as a prime example because skin, it's very much like that in holistic healing, right? And without going into that, you guys know, I don't have to go deep in that, right? So there's something deeper going on. V'chol ma she'haneshama yoter te'ora, היא מרגשת יותר את רעדת מהחובע. The more pure that a person's soul is, the more sensitive they are. And the more they feel this pain. You guys know in family therapy, there's a rule number 1 in family therapy. You have a family that comes in, and they always have a person who's the problem, right? So the rule number 1 in therapy is, this person that the family thinks is the problem is not the problem. They're the most sensitive. They're the most sensitive member of the family, and so the problem it's in the family is coming out in them. Just like the problem can come out in the skin, right, which is very sensitive, much more sensitive than a different organ where that actually might be the source of the physical problem, right? So the same thing. The more sensitive a person is, the more pain they're going to feel about the disharmony of themselves and of the world, right? It's very, very deep. Yesod, keep that in. The more sensitivity equals purity, right? It's not if ever a person pulls out this line on you, you're being too sensitive, right? There's no such thing. No such thing as too sensitive. Maybe a person's reactions are inappropriate. That's something else, though. Has nothing to do with being sensitive. That comes with having to learn how to communicate pain, right? But that has nothing to do with sensitivity. Everybody's sensitive. Just some people are not in touch with their sensitivity, right? But the more pure a person is, the more they're sensitized to all these pains. Until they finally bring the actual healing that comes, and it doesn't just come with putting a cream on the skin, right? It comes with aligning themselves back with tshuva, when they quiet the pain by putting them, interesting, Rav Kook says, putting themselves into the flow of a life of tshuva, not just an acute symptomatic type of healing right now. Okay, this is what I'm feeling, so I'm going to do this, and then it's all good. No, I have to bring myself back into the river of tshuva, back into the flow of tshuva, right? Into the song of the harmony of all this. Hanovat mimukor yom, which flows out from the exalted, how do you say makor? Source. Shehi me'acha et kol hakraim kula, which this with this tshuva, and this flow of tshuva sews together all places in the world that are torn apart. Brings them together. Umazelet tal chaim aolchim lemeisharim mikol sderot havaya, and it brings back into flow life-giving dew, which flows in a straight way on all the different pathways of the creation. Echad be'echad yigashu, each one becomes realigned with itself. Ad chelkei neshama hashava, until all the way down until the actual parts of this person's soul that is returning to God. L'tchiyata ha'elyona berachamim rabim b'chedvat olamim. That's returning to become resuscitated. Right, to get the breath of life back into it with tremendous compassion from Hashem, with tremendous simcha. Right, you guys know I always go to the body. The pasuk in Yov says mi b'sari echza eloka. Let's see what time it is. We'll stop and do this, but just to explain this one last nekuda. Mi b'sari echza eloka. From my flesh I can see God. Right, so it's not just that it's just an analogy between our body and our soul. The deeper Sfarim explain that the way that if we want to look at the levels of reality. So
what do you think of Rabbi Micha? That's all?
Yeah,
one more time. What do you think of Rabbi Micha?
Oh, very good.
And come on.
He doesn't know that we're preparing in our enlistment pills for the world. So, if you look at the different layers of creation, it's like concentric circles. Each one is another layer and a reflection of the one above it. Kind of like the Tanya says, like layers of clothes, right? If I put on a shirt, so it takes on a certain level of the shape of my body. If I put on another one, it takes on that level, that right. The more that you get, the less of the exact same shape it becomes, but it kind of has that same shape, and it's formed with what came before it. So too, everything, this physical world, which is the lowest of all worlds, it's a reflection, and the systems that are in play here, the exact same systems that are in play in the spiritual world that comes above it, and that one from the one that comes above it, and that one all the way up to God, right? And so if something is true in the physical world, it's likely to be true in the spiritual world. There are very great differences between the different layers of creation. There are, but in general, the rules are the exact same, right? The relationship between everything, how one thing relates to itself, is the same, right? And therefore, Rav Kook lots of time uses that as a mashal, and I always go to that mashal because I find it to be very helpful, right? So that's the concept. You also have this on the same level, on the physical level. You have some people that are much more sensitive physically. Right? They feel every little clink and clank inside of their body, and some people don't feel anything, right? And so the people that don't feel anything, they might be able to get through life with a little bit less pain, right? Meaning the conscious pain, but it's kind of dangerous, right? Today you have in cars, the more modern cars, they have all the different systems you can put on. Like you have one that if you're getting close to the line of the lane, so it starts beeping, right? And others, if you're getting too close to something behind you, in front of you, it starts beeping, right? The cars in the old days didn't have any. You had to be sensitive to that, right? Or you had to replace your bumper, right? But now that's what it is. You say the more sensitive a car, right? You say it's for old people that not used to all that, dinging all the time. I always turn all those systems off because it's bothersome to be talked to all the time by your car.
I know already.
Right, exactly. Seatbelt, right? It's like can I breathe here without anybody saying anything, right? But the more sensitive, so the more care, the more cautious, and the more care you can take for yourself. So B'ezrat Hashem, we're here after this piece to embrace our own spiritual sensitivities, to seek more spiritual sensitivity, to understand that the things that we're feeling, that we're not really sure exactly where to put our finger, what's causing it. It's really from that misalignment, and as a general goal, and a general hashkafa for ourselves to really be thinking in terms of universal harmony, and that we're part of that. And we want to be aligning ourselves with that, Bezrat Hashem. Okay, gentlemen.